Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Easy Programming. I'm Naveen Mishra and I'll teach you how to write programs in C++ language. In my previous video, I have told you some theoretical topics related to C++, that is features of hooks, difference between C and C++, and a simple program using C out and C in C++. Now in this video, I'll cover an important topic, classes and objects, which are the basis for any concept of C++ or object-oriented programming. Before starting this video, I will suggest you guys to watch my previous videos of C language and study the concept structures, as if you guys do that, then you will find it very easy to understand the concept here, that is classes and objects. Okay, so let's start with this video. In this video, I will cover class, object, assess specifiers, and how to write program using classes and objects. Okay, so let's start. Structures. I will give you a quick review about structures. So how the structures were created in C language or in C++ language. So what are structures? Structures were user-defined data type. Just like a variable int a, you can declare your own data type using structure. To create a structure, you do this struct and the structure name student, followed by the block of curly braces in which you define the member variables, and then you end the structure using this semicolon. Okay, so this was the structure. Structures were good, but later on it was discovered that there are lots of issues related to structures, which were, first of all, you cannot place a function inside the class. You cannot place a function definition inside the class. So if you are creating a structure, this student structure, then these are fine, that roll number, name and marks are there. But if you try to do that void get data, you won't be able to do that. So a structure can only have member variables but cannot have member functions inside it. This is the first problem. Now the second problem was regarding the security of the data inside the structures. Now let's say your structure is containing a sensitive data, for example student's contact number or account details of a person. If you create the object of this structure inside the main function, for example this student space s1, now this s1 has the access to all the variables of the structure. If we want to do something like s1 should not be able to access the roll number, or s1 should not be able to access the contact number, we won't be able to do that. So you won't be able to stop this line s1 roll number from accessing the data of the structures. So there were many other problems that were found in the structures, and to overcome the structures, classes were introduced. So what is a class? Class is just an extension of structures. So same like structures, it is a user-defined data type, and you can consider the class as an extension of structures. Just like structures, classes can also hold variables that are data members, plus an extra added feature, functions. Your class can also have the functions. To create a class, you have to use the class keyword that was introduced in C++ and was not available in C language. You can consider class as a blueprint based on which the objects in the real world can be created. Similar to structures, class members can be placed inside this curly braces. Okay, so end of class is implemented using this curly braces and end of semicolon. Now there was second problem in structure, that you cannot secure the data, so classes introduced the concept of assess specifiers. These are specially introduced for the protection and security of the data from the outside world of object and child classes. Now these child classes relate to a very important topic of OOPS, that is inheritance, and I will cover the topic of child classes and protected member assess in the video of inheritance. So this is the syntax of class. Now inside class, just like a structure, you will define the name of this class followed by the members of the class. The class members can be a variable or a function. First plus point, then structures, and second plus point, then structures are, you can declare them private or public. And similar to structures, your classes also end with the curly braces and semicolon. We will study more about the classes in the next video. So let's study about the classes. Actually, classes are the representation of the real world entities. For example, in the video of structures, I have told you that if you guys are working on a management system related to school, bank, hospital, hotel, then you must think of the program or the project with the concept of structures and classes. Okay, so let's study here. In the real world we see a lot of things like dogs, human, in bank, school, organizations. You can consider them as a class, so that you will find it easier to understand why the classes and objects are deduced. So let's see. Now let's say I talk about human. Now if you want to think of it as a class and object, so human can be treated as a class, and every human have properties like two legs, two eyes, two hands, one mouth. Okay, so those can be treated as an attributes of human. And what are the behavior of human can be treated as, like, they can run, they can walk, they can talk, they can swim. Some can swim, some cannot. So behavior and attributes of a human can be treated, so that you can convert it into variables and functions. Okay, once we do that, same you can think of a dog. So attributes of a dog are four legs, two eyes, one tail, one mouth. What they can do is they can also run, walk and swim, but they cannot talk. So you can also consider a dog as a class. And similar to that, you can create a bank, any bank, name it, any bank, American bank, Canadian bank, Indian bank, SBI bank. Every bank have these attributes like account number, name, rate of interest, balance, ID. And the behavior of the bank account, what you can do in a bank. If you have the account, you can create an account, you can deposit your money, you can withdraw your money, or you can display the balance you have in your bank account. Now once you create this, then these are the classes. Classes are of no use until its objects are created, because objects allocate memory or provide the existence in the real world for these classes. Classes come in existence only if they have objects. So objects allocate memory to your class data. For example, let's talk about the dogs. Now you see various breeds of dog. For example, German Shepherd is a dog, Labrador is a dog, Pug is a dog. Now all those dogs have these properties common to them, but the weight, the height, the color is different for German Shepherd as of Labrador, as of Pug. So they will be treated as an objects. To understand it better, let's say dinosaurs. We guys know a lot about the dinosaurs. Okay, so dinosaurs were carnivorous or herbivorous. They could have fly. We know a lot about the dinosaurs. They were very huge. But in the real world, in the present world, there are no dinosaurs. So that is, the dinosaur is a class, and objects are the real dinosaurs, which you cannot see in the real world. So there are no objects of the class dinosaur. So you can think of it, think of objects like that. So you guys can come to know that what is the importance of objects. Once we create class, we have to create the object so that the memory is allocated to the class, and we generally create an object inside the main function. You can do the same in the another classes as well, but at some point you have to create an object inside the main function. Okay, so I have explained the same thing here. Let's say talk about the bank. Let's say there are three persons and they have the objects, three objects, account 1, account 2, account 3. All these objects will share the properties or the attributes defined inside this bank class, and they can have their own values. You see, so objects share the attributes, but their values can be different from other objects. This object have account number 1001, this object has account number 1002, and so on. And the same, they have their own values for name and balance variables. Okay, so if you are working on classes, you have to work on objects as well. Classes and objects go side by side. Only creating class will be of no use. Okay, now how to create a class in a program, I have done it in an example. So I have created a class student. Now from second line to 17th line is the block inside the class, and all the attributes of the class student like roll number, name, variables, I have placed it here. And the behavior of the class, that is reading a value of a student or displaying the value of a student, is done in the two functions, get to read the values and show to write the values. Okay, now this roll number and name are in private access. So by default, generally the variables are defined inside the private access of a class. Get and show are the member functions of a class which are defined inside the public access. And again, I'm writing it again, creating just a class will not help your any cause. You have to use the class by creating an object or inheriting it in other class. So Even just creating class is not enough, you have to create the object of that class. Okay, so let's study about the objects. What are objects? So objects are the instance of classes, like blueprint of classes. An object and class is of no use until you create an object of it. So objects allocate memory to the class data. They are the representation of real world entities. Just for example, German Shepherd, Labrador or Pug are the representation of dog class. So objects are the representation of real world entities. We can create multiple objects of the same class. Once you define a class, definitely you can create as many objects of the class as you would like. One thing you have to remember, that when you create an object, they can only access the public members of a class. They cannot access private and protected members of a class, though there is a way to call them indirectly but not directly. I will cover the topic of private, public and protected members in this video only. Okay, so how will you declare an object, or how will you do that? You must declare the object inside the main. You can declare it in another class as well, but we will declare it inside the main function. Okay, so objects are declared in the same way, just like a basic data type. So what is the syntax? You just write the class name followed by the object name and then place a semicolon. Okay, for example, let's just like int a, you can declare bank b1 if your class is bank, student s1 and employee e1. If these are the classes, then you can create the object of them. Generally what we do is we get the initial of class name and followed by object number like 1 2 3. So for bank I have used the initial b, for student I have used the initial s, and for employee I have used the initial e, and then I'm creating the one object, so I'm creating them b1 s1 and e1. Once you create the object, only then computer allocates memory in the main memory for your object. So this is your object b1 and you have the variables allocation, memory allocation for account number, name and balance, but there is no value given yet. There is no value associated to these objects. Okay, so now we have to put the value inside this object data, or use these values or variables to put the value. So to assess the member of a class, we use the dot operator. Simply stating, in a syntactically, you have to say object name dot member name semicolon. For example, s1 dot get or s1 dot show. Okay, so s1 dot get and s1 dot show, you can use this dot operator to call the functions of get and show. Now in the program I have done that. So I have taken a snapshot of that program. I will write a program in this video. Let's study here. So student s1, so this is the object you created. Once you do this, definitely memory is allotted to the roll number and name using an s1. Now you cannot do that. You cannot access roll number and name because they are defined inside the private access. Now you have to use the get function. When you do the get function s1.get, you can put the value inside these roll number and name. Let's say 10 and Joe. So roll number is 10, name is Joe. Putting the value can be done using a get function. You can name it anything, get data, get details, but simply to read the value I use the term get. Now once you have the value, you can show this value or use this value in the program. So s1.show will put this data inside the output screen, and your value, roll number and name will be printed at the output screen. So you have to create the object, then use the dot operator to access the members of a class. Okay, now let's study about the access specifiers. How will you use the access specifiers, or what are the purposes of them? So what are the access specifiers? In just a moment I'll be back. Okay, sorry for that. Now what are the access specifiers? They are also called visibility controls or visibility modes. Okay, there are three access specifiers in a class, that is private, public and protected. By default, the variables of a class or the methods of a class are in private access. So if you forgot to give any access specifier, then class will generally consider it as a private data because of the security, and this data will not be available to the objects and child classes. Okay, public, there must be at least one function or one variable inside the public access so that a class becomes accessible. Otherwise, just creating all the members private will be of no use, because the private data cannot be used outside the class. So public members can be used outside the class. Objects and child classes can use the data of the of this access directly. And you must make two things in general. You must remember these two things and write a program based on that. You must declare at least one member in public or protected access, and generally I'm saying generally, variables are in private access and functions are in public access. It's not like you cannot declare a function or define a function in private access. You can do that, but basically this is the way we write a program in the programming languages. Okay, so you can consider it as a norm that how will you write the things. Now the protected access, I can only teach you that if once I told you about the inheritance. So we will cover it later in the inheritance topic. Okay. Now to show you how the access specifier works, I will give you a graphical picture of that. Okay. So let's say this is a class. This blue box represents a class, and inside this blue box I have private data as well as public data, which is represented by the red bordered lines. And inside these private and public data I have variables and functions in green. Okay, now outside the class, if someone tries to access the private members of a class, they cannot do that. So direct access to private is not allowed, either it is an object or a child class. But definitely public members of a class can be accessed from the outside by the child classes and the objects, so you can access the public members of a class. Then what is the use of private data? If we cannot access them, then why we declare them? Actually, we just make them secure, and using public you can access the functions and variables defined inside the private data. Okay, now you can understand this topic by a table as well. So once you declare a variable inside a class, you can declare them private, public or protected access, and once you declare a variable and put a value in it, you can access this value inside the class, in the main function using objects, or in the child classes. Now if your variable is in private access, then only inside the class you can use them, and objects and child classes cannot access them. If your variables and functions are public, then there is no access, there is no security, anyone can use this public data. Okay, and protected members are specially introduced for child classes. Objects cannot access the private protected data, but childs and inside the class you can access the members of a class. Now I will write a program, some program in C++ language, so you guys can understand how the things are going on. So I'll write a program to understand the concept of private and public. So I will declare a header file, hash include iostream, hash include, h. Using namespace I will define the standard so that I don't have to use the std scope resolution cout every time. I use cout and cin. I'll declare a class, let's say class test, and I have to end the class using this represents the end of class. If I do not mention anything, then by default everything is in private access. Let's see that cout /n inside the private access, and another function void fun2 cout /n inside the public access, and I will define public by doing this. Now once you create a class, you must place a main method, as without main you cannot run your program. Now inside the main function I will create the object of the test, and I will call this fun function and fun. Okay, I will save this test class.cpp and I'll compile this file. Now you see it gives you an error like that void test fun is private, because you are accessing this fun here, that's why it is not working. So you cannot do that, you cannot access the fun method from the object. Now if I compile and run my program, there you go, we have this inside the public access message. Now to access the private members of a class, you can do this, like from fun2 I can call the fun function. So it is just like nesting of functions, calling one function and that function calls another function. So T1 calls the fun2 function, the control transfers here, and then the fun2 function calls the fun function and the control transfer here. So you can do that as well. Okay, so there you go. Your both private and public data are accessible. Private indirectly, whereas public directly. Now let's write another program for students, roll number and name. Okay, so I have written this class and I'll save some of my time by copying the data from here. So just a second. Program 2. So what I have done here is I have declared, just a second. What I have done is I have declared a class student which ends here class, and inside this class I have declared private data. If I do not mention anything, then private, and then public data. In private I have declared two variables, roll number and name, and then inside the get function I have used cin to read the values of roll number and name, and inside the show function I have used cout to display this roll number and name. Now I will use a main function here, and inside the main function I will declare the object. And as I have explained you earlier, you cannot access this roll number and name directly. Okay, compile and run. Just a second. Int roll number is private. Okay, so I have to comment this line as well. There you go. Roll number is 12 and name is Joe, and there you go. It works perfectly. So this is your program of class and objects. Now some of students do this mistake and then say it is not working, like they forgot to put the cout scene inside the function. They do something like this and do like this thing. Just a second. They just forget to pass it inside the function name. They do not define the function name and then they say that it doesn't work. Definitely it will not show you any error, but it will give you this thing. So you guys must make sure that every cout and cin must be placed inside a function. So you have to declare the functions. Okay, just declare the functions and put everything inside the function. Okay, so put it inside the function get and show. You can name it anything like get details, get data. You can write any name. I'm just reading the value, so I'm giving it a name get, and then showing this value, so I'm giving it a name show. So this is another program of class and object. Okay, there are lots of other programs that you guys can do. So this is the list of programs that you guys can do it by yourself. This second program to display the student roll number and name, I have done that for you guys. Then you guys can do this, first of all, simple program of calculating average of three numbers, and then these programs. Okay, so that's it from this video. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you like this video, please do subscribe and share my channel. Thank you very much. See you in the next video. Cheers.